kind of a random question, if you don't mind, but have you ever wondered how you would react if you were in a plane crash? It's a happy thought, I admit, but have you ever been 32,000 feet up in a commercial aircraft and wondered, okay, we're above the Atlantic Ocean, we're above Wyoming, 32,000 feet, how would I react if this plane was going down? I mean, what would you do? I mean, as the oxygen mask come down, would you feel suddenly called to grab the hand of the perfect stranger sitting next to you? Would you scream out? Would you start praying? What would you do? What would you say? I can tell you what I would say. I'd be like, can I get a gin and tonic, please? Can I get a double? Right? I mean, so what would we do? And as you know, the odds of being in a plane crash are 1 in 12 million, juxtaposed to the odds of getting in a car crash in the state of Tennessee, 1 in 3,000. So, we're safe. Do you know that flight attendants are trained to, if necessary, get up in the face of passengers and scream at them? If necessary, to slap them or even use profanity to get them to wake up out of their stupor. Because why? Because contrary to popular belief, when there's a plane crash, people are not knocking each other over to get out of the door. Actually, it's the opposite. Statistically, most people in plane crashes sit there. Suicide. Even if they have children, they sit there because they're in complete and total shock. And if you've ever been in that, you know what I'm talking about. There's a technical term, it's called tachypsychia, which literally means the brain is trying to catch up with reality. It happens in slow motion. If you've been in a car accident, you know what I'm talking about. So they will get up in their face and yell at them and slap them if needed. Why am I telling you this? I'm going to tell you why I'm telling you this. Because, in my opinion, sometimes God will do the same thing with each one of us. Because we can be in kind of this stupor. It's not that we don't care about God, it's just that, well, we're just kind of phoning it in. Right? We're just kind of apathetic. And it's as if God is giving us a little tush-push, a little slap saying, wake up, let's go, chop, chop. How does he do that? Well, for one thing, he will permit things that are, well, annoying and inconvenient. And sometimes these things that happen to us on a weekly basis are just plain annoying. Sometimes God will ask us to do things and put up with people we don't want to do and we don't want to put up with. And he asks us to do this to slow us down. Take a deep breath and refocus. Here's the good news. God is at work often in the inconveniences of life. For instance, have you ever gotten sick at the worst possible time? Have you ever been unemployed? You get laid off at the worst possible time. Many couples know what it's like to find out you're pregnant with an unexpected pregnancy. There's an inconvenience sometimes that we weren't planning on. Joyful, yes, but a little stressful too. Have you ever been raising children, working full-time, and you find out all of a sudden that you're the primary caregiver for somebody? There's some inconvenience for you. And all of this kind of adds to our stress because we can't handle this right now. And many times we feel like we're just kind of fumbling through another week, barely holding this thing together, and this family together, and this marriage together. There's an old expression in the Catholic Church that goes like this. It says, God does not call the qualified, he qualifies the called. God does not call the qualified, he qualifies the called. In other words, if he's asking you to take this on, I promise you he's going to give you the grace that you need to persevere. And then as we get through that, we find we're stronger now. And you have more insights to give to your own children and grandchildren. I mean, think about this. Like in the Old Testament, Exodus 3, Moses is tending the flocks of his father-in-law, Laban. He's out in the field. And all of a sudden the bush starts burning. And God says to Moses, hey, look, you're going to go speak to the king. And Moses is like, no. No, I'm not. Are you crazy? I'm not a good speaker. I know you're not a good speaker. That's why I'm going to send your brother Aaron with you. That's inconvenient. First reading, we hear from the prophet who? I know that was 5 minutes ago, but Jeremiah. So he was a young man. By the way, he was celibate. Okay? So we hear about Jeremiah, and God says, Jeremiah, I want you to go lead your people. No. I'm too young. Don't say you're too young, Jeremiah. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies those that he calls. I'm going to help you. Stick with me. Mary and Joseph, pregnant out of wedlock. There's some inconvenience for you. Don't you know Joseph was like, wonderful. I don't know how I'm going to explain this. I don't know how we're going to pay for it. I don't know. Oh, and by the way, I lost the Savior of the world when he was 12. That's great. There's some inconvenience. Okay? Life happens. Life happens. So it's not neat categories. Because if you're one of those people that like nice, neat categories, good luck. Good luck, it doesn't happen that way. You know, a couple weeks ago I was in London and I visited Winston Churchill's bunker while he was kind of directing things during World War II. And it was really amazing because there was this quote on the wall that Churchill said that I thought was really insightful. He said, you know, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, we are faced with overwhelming odds against Hitler's Wehrmacht. By all accounts, we shouldn't even make it a week. And then he said, I realized with complete clarity that every moment of my life has led me up until this very point. And this is the kicker. I realized there is no way that we would fail. Which he later says to Parliament, we will not flag, we will not fail. And this is why I'm telling you this, because Churchill was not qualified, but God gave him the grace and he didn't second guess that. You know, and he had plenty of people that didn't like him, even in the UK. Lady Astor once said to Churchill, she said, Mr. Churchill, if I was married to you, I'd put poison in your coffee. And he looked at her and said, Madam, if I was married to you, I'd drink it. We're always going to have people that don't like us, all right? And they will try to feed on the discouragement that we may have in our mind. Don't buy into that poison. Don't take the bait. In fact, it should be an impetus to keep going, as it was with him. God does not call the qualified. He qualifies those that he's called. We're not qualified. In fact, if somebody says, yeah, I got this, my suggestion to that guy, put your crash helmet on, brother, because you're going to have a hard time. 2 Corinthians chapter 12, in my weakness there is strength. There's a qualified person there. Lord, I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't know. I don't know how we're going to get through this. I have no idea. But you have never failed me in the past, and you're not going to start now. I have a priest friend in this diocese, and a few years ago, he went to a Notre Dame game in South Bend. And it was cold that day, and you know, when you go into the stadium, security gives you the wand thing. So my friend was walking up, and they saw his priest collar. They said, "Oh, Father, you're good. Go on in." So he goes in, and he goes up to the stadium, and he opens up his jacket, and there, lining the inside of his jacket, was Coors Light Tall Boys. He had a whole case of beer inside, and you know, it was the life of the party, trust me. And he told me this, and I said, "Well, Father, at least you got your priorities in line. That's good. That's good." You know, if you pardon the metaphor, God sometimes smuggles things into our routines, into our lives. It's like he smuggles something in that we didn't see coming. Where did this come from? I don't have time for this. I know. I know you don't have time for this. Take a deep breath and step back. We're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. If you don't feel qualified to what God is asking you to do, what's in your lap right now, my response to that, no disrespect, good. I'm glad you don't feel qualified, because that means you're going to be just fine. I'll close with this. Has anyone, I'm sure most of us have probably seen the 1997 movie Titanic. Yeah, with Kate Winslet and Leonardo DiCaprio. Spoiler alert, the Titanic does sink, in case you didn't get that memo. So in the movie, at the end of the movie, you may recall, there's a Catholic priest. As the Titanic is going down, there's a Catholic priest who's leading these passengers in the rosary. In real life, that man's name was Father Thomas Biles from the UK. And he was a Catholic convert. He was only 42 years old on April 15th, 1912. And as the Titanic was going down, he was leading all these people in the rosary. What a lot of people don't know about Father Thomas Biles was that very morning of the Titanic sinking, that very morning, he was in the third-class passengers celebrating Mass. And this is what he said in his sermon to the third-class passengers. Quote, he said, "Faith in God is like a life raft when everything around you is sinking. When the ship is going down, faith will hold you steady." Only a few hours after preaching that, he died, giving his life, praying with the people as he went into the frozen waters of the Atlantic. Today, Father Biles causes up to be a canonized saint in the Vatican. For each one of us, we often feel like we are barely holding it together. Trust me, you're in good company, all right? The saints felt the same way. God does not call those that are qualified. He qualifies those that he calls, and that's each one of us.